Welcome, everyone. We are joining Dr. Kimberly Sebold from the University of Maine in Presque Isle, and she is going to present to us today. She's our special guest for our iSchool Colloquium talk. Dr. Sebold has been working for 22 years and has taught online methodology classes in local history. Her passion for local history started with her master's program at the University of Delaware, where she researched the development of the chicken industry on the Delmarva Peninsula, where she grew up. And as boring as that may sound, a black market in chickens became the center of the story. She continued researching and writing local history while working for the Historic American Buildings Survey on a project about salt marsh farming in southern Jersey. The salt marshes and local history led to a Ph.D. at the University of Maine in Orono, and then on to a job at the University of Maine at Presque Isle. Local history connects everyday people to larger events and makes history more relevant. ArcGIS Online has now provided a way to map local history and present it in an engaging manner. And so anybody who has questions during this interactive presentation, please feel free to interrupt. You can also put questions in the chat, and Dr. Sebold will get to them as she sees them. We are having a more informal interactive presentation today, so please feel free to interrupt. We will need to start wrapping things up about 10 to 15 minutes before the hour concludes. Thank you.
Okay. Selena, when I share my screen, will you tell me if anybody asks questions in the chat?
Sure.
Because I won't be able to see it.
Yeah, I'll keep it.
So Selena was one of my students online in local history. If you didn't know she had that background, she has a very strong genealogy background and local history background. So it was great to have her in class. So I just wanted to start by saying technology finally caught up to me where I could understand the tools that I needed to do this project that I've embarked upon. I tried to learn ArcGIS, the big program, and I just couldn't. I didn't have the time to wrap my head around it, I guess. And then somebody introduced me to ArcGIS Online, and I discovered that because UMaine system has the license to ArcGIS, we have the license to ArcGIS Online. It's just that a lot of people weren't using it. A lot of people who do ArcGIS do not, they had kind of looked down upon ArcGIS Online. ArcGIS Online has recently gone through a major overhaul. And what it's going to do is it's going to push those ArcGIS users into ArcGIS Online because they've also created a new, I think it's called ArcGIS Pro or something like that, and that's going to take away the big program. I think in a couple of years. In fact, the ArcGIS professor that we have at UMPI is changing over to that as well. So I don't know if any of you are ArcGIS users or not, but I'm going to show you what I've done with ArcGIS. So I should say I started this project in 2020. I had a sabbatical in the fall of 2020 where I was going to go and teach some social studies teachers how to incorporate local history into their classroom. And COVID destroyed that project because I couldn't go into the school systems. So I had to quickly recreate my project. And so what I decided to do was map the cemeteries in central Aroostook County. I wanted to keep, I say central Aroostook County. Aroostook County is the largest county east of the Mississippi, but that doesn't mean it has a lot of people in it. It's got a lot of trees. And so I wanted to kind of stay in central Aroostook County because that was drivable for me. And so I started mapping the cemeteries because by that point, the garments had gotten good enough to the margin of error for the latitude and longitude had decreased so that you could it was within approximate range. If you buy the more expensive ones, I'm for this I used the Montana. I think it's a 680X Garmin, and it has like a 10 to 15 feet margin of error. So it's not exactly, but you can at least find where the cemetery stones are, and then to map the cemeteries. So we would go in, we would take the latitude and longitude of the stones. We clean the stones, and if you want to know about how to clean a stone, let me know at some point. But and then we would write down everything that was on the stone. Which I don't know if you've gone out to cemeteries and looked around, but sometimes nature does a number on stones, especially epitaphs and stuff. So there's techniques to use to get the epitaphs, and if you want to know about that, just let me know as well. So then after I did that, the next step was to put everything into an Excel spreadsheet, turn it into a CSV file, and then upload it into ArcGIS Online to create the map. So really, it's not the hard process is not making the map on ArcGIS Online. The process that's takes the longest is actually creating those Excel spreadsheets so that you can make searchable maps. So I'm going to show you the website. I'm very proud of this website. I got that sabbatical, so that gave me about $2,500 to start kicking things off. Then I applied for what is called a Zillman Professorship, which is an endowment that was given to UMPI, and that was $10,000 a year for 2 years. So that's $20,000. Then I got a Maine Humanities Council grant, which was another $6,000. And then I got a Stephen and Tabitha King grant, which was another $50,000. So this you're looking at about an 80,000 plus dollar project, and that might be, oh yeah, UMPI is the University of Maine at Presque Isle. Sorry about that. So I just wanted to tell you that and most of the money is actually going to pay people to help me after buying the garments, and then the GIS lab loaned me more. That's the most of this money is being spent to have people help me, and they're helping me in different ways. Some are working in the cemeteries, some are doing the data entry, some are writing the story maps. So it depends on who you are as to what you do. And a lot of the people that are working for me are either ex-students or students now. So some of the students now are working for credit. The former students are being paid. Anyway, so I want to show you this. I'm going to start by showing you my website. I don't know. I put the website URL in the chat room, and my email's in there and my phone number. So if you want to get in touch with me, feel free to do so. So can everybody see my my screen? Selena, does it look good?
You look great.
Okay. All right. So so this is my website. It's called History in Stones, because what I'm doing is, with the exception of the Micmacs, the Micmacs are a Native American tribe that live in central Aroostook County. What I'm doing is we're picking people from the cemeteries to research and write the history of central Aroostook County through their lives and how their lives connected to um, a larger state, national, world events. And the way we pick people is random. Um, it just kind of takes on a life of its own. So this is the home page. And I can't tell you anything about how the website was made because I hired a website designer. And this part was from a Maine, what you're seeing now was created from a Maine Humanities Council grant. And then the rest of it, when I get my next part of my next Zillman professorship, I'm going to spend another $4,000 on this. So I just wanted to show you some pictures of the cemeteries. And there's a thing here that leads you back to ArcGIS Online. I am creating lesson plans for 7th and 8th grade social studies teachers, hoping that they'll use the story maps as a way to engage students in history. These are all of the towns that we'll be covering. Eventually they'll have town pictures in here. The woman is still working on developing that stuff. And then this is just showing you some of the things that we actually do in the cemetery. So this was just a little hole. When I found it, it was about that big around. I saw something there and I started cutting away at it, and we found the bottom half of this stone. We did not find the top half, so we don't know who it belongs to. The middle photo here is my husband, who also teaches history at UMPI, and Chungzhen Wang, who is the GIS professor at UMPI, and he's doing ground penetrating radar. I don't know. I know you guys are technology people, so the interesting thing about ground penetrating radar is that it doesn't actually show you where bodies are buried. What it shows you is where there are disturbances in the earth. And if that disturbance in the earth is deep enough, like 6 feet, and it shows up as a parabola, then you have an idea that somebody might be buried there. So this is a nice tool for using when you have a cemetery that there's more people in it than there are actually stones. And that's a big problem in central Aroostook County because a lot of the cemeteries were started as family cemeteries. And when the families died off or moved away, then there was nobody left to take care of the cemetery. And nature likes to take over things, and it does a really good job of it. So there's a lot of, I'd like to get a science professor on board with me, because I love to make a story map about how nature takes over things. And this picture over here of me with my handy dandy tool from the dollar store, and I don't know if you see, I'm holding a actually a linoleum cutter. Again, this is a stone, and I just saw a little piece and I started digging, and by the time I was done digging, this is the stone that appeared. So I believe what happens is that when they mow over flat stones, and the grass clippings get in there, I'm not sure how. Maybe one of the science people on here, if there is anybody, can help me with this question. But I believe that it starts the formation of sod, and that's the sinking of the stone. We live in Maine, where 6 months out of the year, the ground is frozen and we get what is called frost heaves. And it heaves up the ground, and then in the springtime, it all sinks down. And I think that that plays havoc on cemetery stones. And so one of the things that we do is we go around, and again, this is the linoleum cutter right here. Is we cut out the sod around the stones. And this is just some local critters in the area. And then this was another stone that I finished. That she didn't put up the picture of what it looked like when I was finished. But this, again, just shows you how grass starts to take over the stones. And over here on this picture, this is how we recover the epitaphs. It's basically aluminum foil. You spray the stone with water. You make sure it's not rocking. If it's rocking, you need somebody to give it stability. We put the aluminum foil over it, and then we take a dental brush and gently rub over the stone, and we'll end up with the epitaph 9 times out of 10. The reason we don't do rubbings is because rubbings require pencil or wax, and both can leave marks on the stone. So it's not so much technology as it is just basic hard labor, but that kind of gives you a start of where we go. And then once we're finished with that, I'm going to show you some of the finished story maps. And again, these have all been created on ArcGIS Online. So I'll start with Old St. Denis Cemetery, because this is probably one of the oldest cemeteries in the area. So this is an ArcGIS Online map. If you click over here, you can put in names. So if I put in Russell and click that, then you'll see that there are 4 Russells. If I click on Michael Russell, it gives you the latitude and the longitude, the name, the birth dates, death dates, whatever's there. The fact that he was a native of County Tipperary in Ireland. And then if you click on more information, the actual tombstone will appear. Now, the way that you get the pictures into the Excel spreadsheet is that you have to put them in something that will give you a URL. What I'm doing with them is compressing the photos and uploading them to ArcGIS Online, simply because I'm not sure. We use Google Drive, and every once in a while, one of the tech people say, "Oh, you're going to get rid of Google Drive." So if that happened, then all my pictures the links would break. So I put it automatically into ArcGIS Online. And that will generate a URL, and then I can just put the URL in the Excel spreadsheet. And then another feature that ArcGIS Online has is that you can have an about. This is a widget that you can use to give you some history of St. Denis, the old St. Denis Cemetery. This is a lot of the earliest settlers of Fort Fairfield, Maine, are buried in Old St. Denis. So Michael Russell, there's research going on about him. He's kind of an interesting character. Somebody else I'll show you that I'm going to do some research on is Nicholas Somers. And if you go down here on his tombstone, it says died in Salisbury Prison, North Carolina. I'll show you his stone. He shares it with his brother. And And what's interesting about that is that he was a prisoner of war in the Civil War. So again, I'll do more research and create create his history in the context of the Civil War, the unit that he was in, and then how he was captured, and what Salisbury Prison was like in North Carolina. Do we have any questions? Anybody want to ask me anything up to this point?
I do have one question that some of us might have. If you're looking at how you're coding up these stones, and you know that the stone isn't in the same place as the person that is deceased, do you prioritize the location of the stone in ArcGIS or the body if you know where the body is?
So I ran into a problem when I first started. I'll bring up. I should have done this before. Hold on 1 minute. So you'll find that on a cemetery stone, you could have multiple people. And what I started to do when I was first, so this is the CSV file that I created out of the Excel spreadsheet. This is what is behind that stone. And if you'll notice, I have up here name, birth, oops, sorry. Let me go back to that. I have name, birth, and oh, I don't know why it's doing that. Anyway, I have name, birth, epitaph, so on. And so I had that for one person. And then I would go name, birth, epitaph, all on the same line. So if there were, for example, if there were 6 people on this stone in line 3, I would have 6 people. I would have like 18 categories. Does that make sense? In one line. And then I discovered that ArcGIS Online can only search one item at a time. And I think that they're going to, as they update, and they're in the major process of a major overhaul of the program, I think they're going to allow you to search for more than one field. So what I had to do is make, so if you look here, see where it says 508, 508, 508, that means that there's 3 people on that stone. So I had to make a line for every person that was on a stone in order for the map to search. So when I put it together, that's what I had to do. So it's just something I had learned the hard way about how to put the thing together. Now, what I could do, Selena, if it's a cenotaph, which is what I think you're talking about, is it not?
It's also just the ethical question of, if we know a body's here and we know there's no stone, what do we do about that? Do we mark it anyway? Or if we know that the stone was here, but something was relocated for whatever reason, how do you code that up in your database?
Well, that's a good question, because that would lend, in order for me to know that, I would have to have Dr. Wong use that ground penetrating radar. So for example, in one town, there is a cemetery that only has 2 stones in it, but it's a huge cemetery. There are a lot of people buried there, but the town wiped out all the stones. And the area flooded, and the town just didn't want to deal with the stones anymore. And some town clerk made a bad decision and ripped up all the stones. So I know there are people there. I don't know who the people are. So what Dr. Wong would do is he would create a map with his data from the ground penetrating radar, and it would identify possibilities of bodies, but we can't put a name to the bodies, if that answers your question.
Thank you.
So basically, when we're doing this Excel spreadsheet, we're mapping the people and not the stones, right? because the ArcGIS Online, when you make their maps, they can only search one field at a time. I could make multiple maps where we could look up other categories, and I plan to do that. When I finish this project, I want to make all of them, take all the maps and put them together and have veteran searchable, like World War I veterans. So we would have, there is a category called veteran that you can't see here, but I would do that. So if people wanted to look for veterans, they could do that as well. So, and I probably, if I know something is a cenotaph, for those of you who don't know what a cenotaph is a gravestone that has no body. So Nicholas Somers, for example, his is a cenotaph, at least for him, because his body is not there. He died in Salisbury Prison, North Carolina, during the Civil War. And what I've learned is that a lot of people did not come, their bodies did not come back from the Civil War. So what you have to understand about Aroostook County, Maine, like I said, it's the biggest county west of or east of the Mississippi, but it's also probably the most northern county of the east of the Mississippi, and it did not get a railroad until 1892. So the only way to get a body back would have been to go to Bangor, which today is a 3-hour car ride. So you can imagine what it would have been like to either, they would have had to sailed the body back or could have taken it by train. But then once they got to Bangor, they would have had to have gone overland, or they could have sailed up to like Nova Scotia and come up the St. John River. Either way, it would have been pretty smelly and there wouldn't have been much left. So there's cenotaphs. A lot of these Civil War soldiers who are dead are actually buried in national cemeteries in the South. So I don't know if you wanted to know that, Selena, but there you go. So this kind of just gives you a sense of what these maps look like. There's in addition to Old St. Denis, there's Cochrane Cemetery. This Munson Christie Cemetery is an early cemetery as well. They have both a diphtheria and a scarlet fever epidemic that killed some of these people. It's very close to a river. I'll show you that. So the Aroostook River, everybody settled along the Aroostook River in the beginning. So if I, let me see, if I zoom out, here is the Aroostook River. And you might think, well, that's not that, that's kind of far from that cemetery. But let me show you a picture that I just showed Selena. If this is not something that I don't think people in Arizona would have to worry about. This is what we call, let me show you the one by the bridge. This is what we call an ice flow. And that river is not a big river. That river is about the width of the bridge. So you can see how far the river goes over its banks in the winter or in the springtime when the ice breaks. And then sometimes we get ice dams, and then the rivers back up and the flooding gets worse. So some of the stones for this cemetery were wiped out by floods. There is a list, and let me just show you this. So again, this handy dandy widget that ArcGIS Online has. This is the name of all the people who died from the diphtheria epidemic. But if you go down, oops, sorry. No, come on. If you scroll down here and scroll back over, this is the list of the names of our unmarked graves. So at some point, these people had stones in this cemetery and they're now missing. And they're missing because of flooding. And there's quite a few rivers or quite a few cemeteries that have this problem in the area. So again, Selena, we did run GPS or ground penetrating radar in this cemetery, and we found evidence in this area that there were some bodies buried there. We also found evidence that there were not necessarily bodies buried where there are stones, which means somebody came back through, picked up the stones that flooded and replaced them, not really knowing where they went. So again, this is, I mean, none of this could be known if it weren't for technology. And I don't know how to run ground penetrating radar. I mean, I'm a historian, okay? And ArcGIS Online, just this part of it, there's so much more you can do with it. ArcGIS Online is actually meant to run analysis, just like regular ArcGIS is. So if you go to ArcGIS Online and you look at some of their examples, it'll be like they will run analysis to see where most crimes happen in a big city, and they'll look at the crime clusters. What I'm doing is kind of something that most people don't do with this program. So and they know at least the education part of Esri, which makes ArcGIS Online. They know what I'm doing. So they know that I'm using the program a little bit differently. So does anybody have any else questions about these cemetery maps before I show you something else? All right. Well, then I'll show you the other part of this. So the other part of my website are story maps. And the story maps are also created in ArcGIS Online. It's basically an interactive way of telling a story. And as you can see, you have the ability to put in illustrations. If you go up here to the little eye, it allows you to cite the illustration where you got it, which is very nice. And this is a story about a woman who we researched simply because of her name. So I have a friend and her name is Araminta Matthews. She is a instructional designer, and she also is a writer, and she also teaches English. And so when Angela and I were out in the cemetery, we saw the name Araminta, and we're like, wow, that's really weird. We actually found another Araminta as well. I mean, I had never heard the name Araminta until I met Araminta Matthews. So Angela became interested, and she looked up Araminta Thomas and found in the newspapers, thank goodness for digital newspapers, hence technology making history a lot easier. She found a newspaper article where her Araminta Thomas's father had her body exhumed when she died and sent her stomach contents to Augusta. This would have been in the 1890s to have it for them to look for arsenic poisoning. Now, I don't think arsenic stays in the stomach. It stays more in the liver and the intestine. So the report came back inconclusive. But before the report came back inconclusive, there's another newspaper article that talks about her husband killing himself. And so that brought up the question, did he kill himself out of grief? They had lost a daughter as well, about a couple years before that. He had lost his father several months before that, and then he had lost his wife. So the question becomes, was this a murder-suicide? Was it just that he did this over grief? And this is a vehicle for something that I wanted to talk about but didn't know how to do it really well. And that is that Aroostook County, the area, at least the central Aroostook County area, has a lot of suicides. It's suicide is part of the culture. I've never seen it this way before. I grew up in Maryland, and I could tell you of one person in my community that committed suicide. And maybe I was sheltered, I don't know. But there are probably at least 5 to 6 suicides a year in central Aroostook County. Selena, did you pick up on this when you lived there?
I did, and I personally thought it was just because of the rural area, the rural culture, and also because we're hours and hours away from the nearest city.
Yeah. And the winters are bad.
They're very bad.
Yeah. I mean, it gets dark at 3 o'clock when in the fall. So, um, and the winters are long. The snow is just melting now. Um, so this is a story about what actually we think happened to Araminta Thomas, but we're not positive. History raises more questions than answers. But again, you can see these are all open source or Creative Commons license illustrations. If I can't get Creative Commons use, then I ask the people if I can use it. If I have to pay a fee, sometimes I pay a fee. Um, but what you can see here is that when you create these story maps, you can have headings, and this is like a different chapter, all right, for each of the story, which is really great because if you don't want to go through the whole thing, you can jump around and look. The other thing that you can do is you can link out. So again, this is 7th, 8th grade we were trying to hit. I'm kind of appalled at the reading level of 7th and 8th grade, by the way. I used there's reading level programs that you can use on the internet, and you can type in you can cut and paste your text into it, and they will tell you the reading level of your writing. And basically 7th, 8th grade writings, you can't have a lot of clauses. You have to have short sentences, and you can't have a lot of words with more than 3 syllables, which I was kind of appalled at. But anyway, so like we this is hyperlinked because we put the definition to exhumed in there. But here are some other things. It's like we put the definition of depressive disorder and postpartum depression. At that point, it was called melancholia. You can, again, this is, you can see where I got it, but I wanted to have a figure telling the people why I use this illustration, and so I put that in there. So again, we're just talking about her getting married, what a winter looks like here, possibilities of gowns. This would take you out to this magazine. This takes you, so we can introduce other topics like what corsets did to women's bodies in the 19th century. I don't know if you've ever thought about it, but it basically caved in your rib cage. And when they said that women, fainted a lot and whatever, it's because they couldn't take deep breaths because the corsets were too tight. Anyway, so, again, we're offering more information than just the story of Araminta Thomas. I wanted to just show you, you can put you can add other figures into the illustrations. Again, you have the where you can get the where we got it, and then it automatically allows you to put the a heading, not a heading, like a figure or a description of the photo, why you're using the photo. You could also put in there videos. This is a map that I made on using ArcGIS Online. I overlaid I overlaid the map of Maysville onto a present day map to give people more of an idea of this is where Arminta grew up. If you click on that, then you've got another feature that you can use for a description. This is where her in-laws lived, and this is where I think she and her husband lived. So you can incorporate other maps into here. You can incorporate video. The sky's the limit, what you want to incorporate. As long as you have a protected an HTTPS file, you can incorporate it into here. What I love about this one is that she incorporated the yellow wallpaper in here, which is a story about a woman who has postpartum depression and what happens to her. So again, we're kind of trying to hit other things that have context, that provide context for the story. I'm going to leave this one. You can go back and look at it yourself. This one's about Irish potato famine settlers. This one is about an African-American man who lived in Fort Fairfield. The other thing about Aroostook County is that it's as white as it can be. It's really, at this time period, there were only 2 African-American men living in Fort Fairfield. So you can read about him. I wanted to show you these other ones are about the MCMACs, that the Native Americans that live in the area. And so I'm going to just use this one. So there's a lot of folklore and folk culture that goes with the MCMACs. There's 4 tribes that are in Maine, and most textbooks clump them all together or use the 2 bigger tribes for examples. So the MCMAC and the Mousie kind of get pushed to the side. So I wanted to make sure that the MCMAC got some recognition. This is, again, you can incorporate a YouTube video into there. I wanted to just show you this map that she made. So the other thing you could do, this is a map where she pinpointed where some of the GLOOSECAP stories are. GLOOSECAP is kind of the creator of the world for the tribes that live in Maine, but we wanted specific things that associated with the MCMAC. So again, you can click on that button, and these are stories, folklore stories that have been collected by Charles Leland. They're out of copyright, so that's why we use them. But again, it allows the student to have an idea of the geography of the stories. So you can, as you can see, you can do that. You can make it smaller. You can make it, you can manipulate it, is the point here. And let me see, let me put this back. And we did this a couple of different ways. This one is MCMAC place names, and she not only put in what the place name was, but some of these actually has there's pronunciation guides, and so she linked out to the pronunciation guides. Like this one has a pronunciation guide, so you can click on that. It'll take you to another web page where it's pronouncing the name in MCMAC. So I just wanted to kind of show you that in terms of the dynamics of these story maps and what they can do. And this also gives you, again, you can link out here to get more of the pronunciation guide, MCMAC dictionary, things of that sort. And then again, this is another aspect of the place names. I just wanted to show you that. Another video that was produced about the story of GLOOSECAP and the chickadees. And then this is a video of MCMAC elder telling a story about the creation of water. And I thought we put that in there because we thought it would be nice for the students to actually see, um, an elder from the tribe and listen to them tell the story. So that's kind of the story maps. I mean, I could go through more of them, but I think that it would be better for you to take the time to go through them and link out to them and take your time to go through that. There are some other resources on here. If you go and look through this, you're going to find some stuff that doesn't look very nice because I put it up years ago when I didn't really know what I was doing. So the next phase of the building of the website will take into consideration what we do with there. This is kind of just to show you how technology, well, you guys all know how technology changes fast, rapidly. So I made this map back in 2010, sometime around there. This was made with the big ArcGIS program, and you had to snap all the, I can't remember even what the term is for this. What I wanted to do was create information. So this is the 1877 atlas with the names of the farmers on it, overlaid on a present day map. And I wanted to show what the farmers were growing in 1870. In order for me to do that, I had to go through and make live each one of these squares. If any of you are GIS people, forgive me, but I can't remember what the name of this is to do this. Anyway, so I went through and did this. I pulled my hair out because if things weren't lining up correctly, you wouldn't be able to, it wouldn't be able to go live, and you couldn't put the information in there. So think about that. And then think about that story map that I just showed you of the MCMACs. Or think about the story maps or the maps that have the pop-up features just from an Excel spreadsheet. So what I did to create that map of Fort Fairfield that I just showed you, this one, where I pulled my hair out and just about said, I'm never ever working with ArcGIS again. The technology has moved so fast forward that now all I would have had to have done to create that was create an Excel spreadsheet and loaded it up into ArcGIS Online. And that's the beauty of ArcGIS Online. It makes things so much easier than the big ArcGIS program. So I guess that's about all I have to tell you. I don't know if any of you have any questions, or I'll stop sharing my screen. It's just showing you how history and technology can intersect.
Well, we do have a few moments for questions. I see something's in the chat. Okay. I have a couple of general questions, and I think I'll give other people a chance to ask theirs first, but let's just give other people a chance.
And don't feel bad if you don't have questions. Yeah.
I've been just experiencing with GIS and story mapping, and I was really curious on how you overlap the old photograph to the mapping. So did you insert that just like a image, and then because that was really interesting to do the overlapping.
You mean the old map onto the new map?
Yes.
So there you have to actually, ArcGIS is going to come up online, is going to come up with that capability here soon. I know it is, right now, what I have to do is go to, it's called ArcGIS. It's the big ArcGIS program, but there's now it's called ArcGIS Pro. And you do it that way. And basically what you do is you hit, you have to have 4 points on the map that actually identify with something real on the ground. And you connect those 4 points to those places on the ground. Like they can't be 4 points close together. They've got to be 4 points that are kind of, evenly spaced apart. And then that will snap that old onto the new. ArcGIS has a great how-to if you're interested. I would just type in ArcGIS Online and then how to do X, Y, and Z. If you email me in the next couple of days, send me the directions on how to do that, I will send you the directions that the education director for Esri, who makes ArcGIS Online, sent to me on how to do that. Okay. So, and I think maybe he is using ArcGIS Online to do it. I'm not positive. But anyway, the only reason I'm using the ones that I have right now were made in the big program, and I didn't make them. A student made them for me and felt sorry for me.
But thank you. Yes. Yeah. Excellent. Now I have the link to go to see the examples that you show to inspire my work.
Oh, good. But like I said, email me, and I'm on the road for the next couple of days, but I'll get back to you and send you those instructions.
I have 2 questions concerning logistics. First of all, do you have to know how to code in order to use something like this?
Nope.
Okay. And then do you need an ArcGIS account in order to use something like this?
Yes, you have to. So I'm sure you guys have a GIS lab. I mean, you're a big university, right? You have to have a GIS lab. If you have a GIS lab, they have a subscription to ArcGIS. And if they have the subscription to ArcGIS, they have the subscription to ArcGIS Online. You just have to convince them to turn the subscription on. That's all it is. And it's not hard to do. And ask them to make you an administrator. And then that way you're in control of it. The UMaine system has the subscription for us. So if you're part of a system, it might be at the system level. I don't know. If you're a nonprofit, like if you're a historical society or something like that, they give you a discount yearly rate. But no, you don't have to know code, although they have MOOCs, a massive online, what are they, that sound? I can't remember. Anyway, if you have an ArcGIS account, or even if you don't, because they'll loan it to you for the time of the MOOC. But if you go ArcGIS Online MOOCs or ArcGIS MOOCs, they have MOOCs that show you how to do story maps. They have MOOCs that show you how to do other types of mapping, which uses that ArcGIS Pro. They have MOOCs that cost $1,500, or well, they're not, I guess they're not free but they have classes that are like $1,500 and others that are $3,000, none of which I've taken. I've taken the, I usually try to take the free ones. Yeah. So.
Okay. Well, I think we are going to end for now. Zachary Litcherkatz has put into the chat more information about ArcGIS at the University of Arizona. all the information that has been posted in chat will be put up in our social media site and the School of Information website. That'll come out in a couple of days, maybe longer given the holiday weekend. Dr. Sebold, thank you so much for your time and showing us how we can use visuals and bring history to life, and then use the technology for that too. Not everyone uses code, and so knowing how to do something like that and not being a coder, that's important to people and for the accessibility. So thank you for showing us how this can be done.
And they have on some of those MOOCs, they will show you how to do a little bit of code if it's necessary. I'm not going to ever do anything that's going to need code. That's you know, that's out of my bag of tricks. But thank you for being a captured audience. I appreciate it because I love talking about my project.
Yes. And I will always remember, if you see a lilac tree in the middle of nowhere, you know there was a settlement there at one time. I never knew that until I took your course.
Yeah, because lilac trees they just don't grow up for no reason.
Right.
The other thing is, don't plant trees, lilac trees, bushes, or anything like that around a stone, a cemetery stone, unless you plan to live forever and keep it pruned. So if you walk away with anything, that's the thing to walk away with.
Right, right. Well, thank you again, Dr.
Yeah,
Sebold.
no
All right.
problem.
All right, and then if anybody has any questions about how to get in touch with her, again, you can look on the website at the University of Arizona's iSchool colloquium information, or just at the iSchool website itself. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Have a good day.